take this thing off. Hello, everybody. And now you see us. Hi, everyone. How are you? It's good to see y'all out there. We've got 8 people in the room right now, and I know that we'll have more flooding in very soon. So hello to Dale. Hello to Bree. Hello to Neil. Hello to Fred. And anyone else who's out there, just say hello, and it'll be nice to see you there. So we took a week off last week. Mary was out of town visiting her. Is this your godchild? Is that what you
This is
call her?
my yes, these are children that I did not birth, but they're mine nevertheless, and they have a child now.
Right.
So
Okay.
I I was there for her birth,
For her birth. Right. I
right? And
remember.
then I came because her mom went back to work, so I helped her out for a week and had a great time in San Francisco at the same time.
Yeah. San Francisco's
Yeah,
beautiful. Hey,
it
Bobbert.
is.
I think that's one of my favorite cities, actually. I've been there 3 or 4 times, I guess. And believe it or not, I think every time I've gone there, I stayed at the same place. And the second time I stayed there was completely unintentional, but I always stay there now when I go back.
Oh,
And
good.
it's a little boutique hotel, you know.
What part of town?
It's kind of downtown. It's downtown where that there's like a circle thing by the I guess it's by the government building, the
Yeah,
city
I know
hall or
where.
something. Yeah.
Yes.
Somewhere around that area. It's near there. Hey Barb and Alice and Bobbert. Good to see y'all.
I
So and
usually
Bree, you wouldn't want a bicycle in San Francisco. I've done that. We we my wife and I
Oh my God, you did
uh,
it.
that we survived, that our relationship survived the experience is amazing. So what we did, we got on one of these bicycles that are built for 2 people, you know,
Oh my God,
and
no.
those don't work too
I
well. But
can't believe you did that.
so we did that, and so we're going through like we start at San Francisco part where they have all the restaurants and everything. That's where we got our bike, and the idea was we're going to go across the Golden Gate Bridge and then down into this what's the name of that little Italian city across the bay? Is it
Tiburon,
I don't know, Sausalito maybe? I can't.
Sausalito.
Is
Yeah,
that
where
what it
all the
is?
houseboats are. Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, so we did that. Hey, Missy. And so anyway, so first of all, it starts out really bad because people are honking their horns at us because I don't know how to use this stupid bicycle. My wife is complaining because it's hurting her butt and it's all this kind of stuff like that. So so I'm cussing at I start cussing at people who are honking at me. And then we go up and we get on the Golden Gate Bridge and it's crowded as hell. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
there's
is.
all kinds of people walking
Yep.
on it and everything. So we get off our bike and we walk across. Yes, Sausalito, I think must be it. Anyway, so we ended up walking across the freaking Golden Gate Bridge. Very beautiful. And then we go to this area where this place on the other side of the bridge,
Mhm.
and it's all freaking downhill, big hills. So we're on our bike going as fast as hell.
My God.
So anyway, we get down there, we have a nice time, nice lunch, and then we get on a ferry and we take it back across the bay and turn the bike back in. But yeah, anyway, Bree, I won't ride a bicycle in San Francisco ever again.
I give you all credit for even doing that on a two-wheeler thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that took amazing confidence.
I had no idea it would be that difficult, and neither did my
Oh,
wife. She's not much of a bicycle rider, really. I mean, we bought her a bicycle, and it's always the same complaint. You know, she just can't
yeah,
be comfortable on the bike.
right.
So
Gotcha.
anyway,
Even
so
walking up and down the hills is a lot.
oh, it is. It
Yeah.
is. And back then I was actually in pretty good shape and I could just bounce up and down those hills just great. It'd be really
Wow.
hard right now. But I used to love walking around that city and exploring it. It's really beautiful.
It is.
So I'm glad that you were over there and got to see the baby and
I
you're
got to see the baby and I had a wonderful little break and it was lovely.
good.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be back.
It's good to have you back. It's good to be back in the seat again. You know, I these doing these live streams, and Mary, you know what it's like. It's like, before it starts, I'm either nervous or I'm dreading it, or there's some sort of tension, that's building within me that, oh my God, the live stream is coming and something's and then you start doing it, and it's like, oh, I love this. We now have 15 people in the room. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And anybody who I have not said hello to, I don't know, but I see Barb in there and Alice in there, John in there, Michelle. Good to see y'all. So anyway, it's good to be back in the saddle again, from taking off last week. I've been on vacation for a week, and it seems like it's been a lot longer than that even, actually. And I had a lot of stuff going on here. My wife's father's like ancient now, like 85 years old, and he's impaired and stuff going on with him, and just been a lot of stuff going on. So Panamuse, good to see you. So I don't know, I haven't really done much with the podcast. I haven't put an episode out in 2 weeks, you know? I think, but one reason I just had a lot going on. Another reason is I think I just needed a break.
Yeah, you do so much. It's okay to take a break.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
recharge, recharge.
So anyway, I got an episode coming out with John Huey. He's back. He's back and he's angry.
And he's talking about having his own podcast, is he not?
I didn't know that. He would be
I
good at it.
Yeah, I saw him talking about it on Beyond
Oh
Belief.
yeah.
Yeah,
He could do it. He's got all the equipment. He's got something to say, and there are people who like to listen to him. So yeah, he would do a really good job with his podcast. He'll
he
have to
would.
have me as a guest. But yeah, I'll be posting an episode of him real soon. I guess I'll do that next week. And then LaDawn. I recorded
Oh, good.
yeah, and I'll do her the following week.
Wonderful.
So yeah. Okay. So today's discussion. This might be a short episode because it's about things we don't talk about. I'll tell you what. I tell you how this happened. So I was at a meeting last week sometime. It was a traditional meeting online, and Neil says, "I can't imagine him having a podcast," but he says I would listen. But anyway, can't argue with the guest. That's true. I'm glad that Jay mentioned that because I don't argue with my guests. Someone else accused me of being codependent because of that. I just think it's being polite. They're your guest. Anyway, so don't
Yeah,
argue
and I
with your
mean,
guests.
nobody really wants to hear an argument.
No one wants to hear an argument. And you know
Right.
what? It's more interesting for me to hear someone else's perspective rather than argue with them that their perspective is a bunch of BS. I might
True.
think it is a bunch of BS, but I
Right.
don't have to tell them that. I just listen and say, I can evaluate my brain and let the listeners evaluate for themselves what they think. And they do.
Yeah. Right.
John Huey will come on and he'll say this sucks or that sucks or this is good, this is good. And I might think to myself, I don't know. And the listeners will do the same thing. And some will agree and some won't agree. Let people just make up their own mind. So
Yeah, he
anyway,
doesn't leave you wondering what his opinion is ever.
no, he doesn't. He always lets you know what his opinion is.
100% in detail.
Well, anyway, so I went to this meeting, traditional meeting online, and it was a very good meeting. There were like 4 or 5 people there, a small meeting, and the topic was on amends and step 8. And they were actually reading from the 12 and 12. And they read something from there. I should have pulled it before we came on, but they read something from there that I don't ever remember reading before. And maybe it's just because I haven't looked at it for a long time, but it was talking about self-forgiveness. It was talking about thinking about the amends that you need to make, but forgiving yourself. And
Yeah,
I
right.
just never, we talk about that in meetings sometimes, but so often it seems like the emphasis seems to be on, making amends for the things that you've done, unless of course it hurts the other person. But, it's always just like maybe a side dish that you think about making amends to yourself or that you forgive yourself. But that's really important stuff. And
Agreed.
so one of the people were sharing something in the meeting about her life and what's going on with her, and I could relate so well. And for whatever reason, I felt comfortable talking about things in that meeting that I haven't talked about in other AA meetings. And what's interesting is maybe I don't need to, maybe some of the stuff that we don't talk about are things that are maybe more appropriate with a therapist or something. But in my case, I haven't been even dealing with it. I've just been kind of shelving it, putting it off, you know. And I may have mentioned it in brief, here before, but with me, it's just this whole thing that there is nobody, Mary, that I'm related to by blood
Mhm.
who I can speak with and have a conversation with, that I can
Mhm.
have a relationship with.
Mhm.
Nobody, none. And it bugs me. It doesn't have to be that way. And I guess what gets me is like I've been sober for 34 years. I've done the amends, and I have this broken family of origin. And I know where it came from. I had this well, it's my brother. My younger brother's a mental illness. It tore the family apart. So he's got 2 kids, and then I've got my sister and my older brother, and we all had different limits of what we could do. And
Mhm.
I don't think that like others could accept what my limitations were,
Mhm. You
and
you had boundaries.
I did.
Mhm.
I got to a point where I couldn't just rush off and go rescue him and try to get him into a hospital or whatever and forsake things that were going on in my own life. And and I guess I just had to be kind of protective about what was going on with me. And my sister was in a different place than that. And my older brother was in a different place than that. And then his kids were so they just well, one of them is just as ill as my brother, and then the other one just wants a clean break from all that stuff. He just wants to move on with his life. So there we are, and we don't talk. And so I had a bright spot come on like a couple of weeks ago. I had my little nephew. I call him little nephew. He's like 34 years old, I guess. my little
Yeah.
nephew, my little nephew David. I had him come over. I love the kid, and he's grew up, watched him growing up, and I'm really proud of him. But he does suffer from mental illness too. And he came over and he wasn't on his meds, and our household was chaos. And I was kind of heartbroken. Here it is once again. I want to have a
Mhm.
relationship with someone I'm related to, and it's just not
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
So I don't know. So there I am. So, this is probably something I do need to probably go to talk to a therapist about or something, but I've never really dealt with it. I've never really openly talked about it in any detail. And it does bother me. I see my wife and her family, and she's got people she's related to she can talk to, and I don't.
Mhm.
But I also have a small family. Most of us are dead now, but anyway. So
So
that's my
so when you were in that meeting, just the atmosphere of the meeting brought this up, and it helped you realize that that's something that you wanna put attention on.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a really nice meeting. I've been there a couple times, and what I like about okay, it's a traditional meeting, but they don't do the Lord's Prayer. They do the Serenity Prayer, and they're really big about reading the promises and stuff like that. And some of the people talk about God, but they're not overly God stuff. And some of them are very progressive with their views about like, getting therapy and wishing that the steps had this in it or that in it. So they're more open than a lot of the traditional AA groups I've been to. So it's really not it's nice, and I feel comfortable there. So yeah, and the people in that meeting made me feel, I guess, safe enough to start talking about this stuff, you
Mhm.
know? Because they were opening themselves up to be vulnerable as well.
Mhm.
And I could relate to what they were saying. Plus, they've been around like me too. They also have been like sober since the 19 frickin' 80s. And here we are, a bunch of old timers that still have these problems.
Yeah,
It's like just because you're sober and everything, and life's better, no doubt about it. But there's still things that are going on, and sometimes you deal with them, sometimes you don't.
exactly.
So
Sometimes you don't, but when they come up and you feel like you wanna deal with them is the best time to deal with them, I think.
I think so. You're right about that. There's a time. There's a time and place
There is
for
a time,
everything.
there's a season for everything.
And sometimes you're not ready to deal with stuff.
No.
Sometimes you just need I don't know. I don't know what it is. Sometimes maybe you just need some motivation. Sometimes you just need some healing. Sometimes you just need the desire. You might not even have a desire to deal with this stuff at that
Right,
moment, that you're okay doing with what's going on.
right.
Oh my gosh, there's some comments in here. Let's read them. John says, I had to start with myself when it comes to forgiveness and amends. And I think that's a good idea. And Edwin, it's good to see you. Family connection or not, seen and expense. Why your topic caught my eye.
Seen and experienced, I think.
Seen and okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad the topic caught your eye, Edwin. I'm glad to see that you are here. Here, someone has a comment about the God meetings. I've been going to regular meetings and it's been okay. It's my experience too lately. Maybe I've gotten the whole thing. I can put things in perspective a little bit better now. But when they talk about God, I just edit it accordingly. And mostly they talk about propaganda stuff. That's been my experience. But, it can vary from meeting to meeting. The meeting I happen to be going to, it does seem to be more that way. But, if you go to like some kind of crazy meeting, it might not be that way. Those meetings certainly do exist. So anyway, did I
I
even
haven't been to a traditional meeting in a long time. Um,
no.
yeah, but there was one online that's meeting in person now. That is same thing, progressive people, not much God, and I feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Bobbert says, sometimes dealing with some issues just ain't worth it. Just ain't worth it. And that might be the case. I think I am going to get some outside help on this one just to see what's going on. But maybe there's someone in my family I can have a relationship with. If there's just one person, that would be great.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's all about I think it's great. Outside help, I 100% recommend, but it's also your expectation level on
mhm.
when you have that conversation. If you have an expectation of what's gonna be in response to you, might be different than the reality. So, I mean, I think it's all about the way you approach it.
Yeah,
I would go without expectations,
I
and then
think you're right.
so you wouldn't necessarily be disappointed if it didn't turn out the way you thought it would or
Yeah,
wished that it would.
yeah. So anyway, I think this is going to be stuff I'm going to deal with. I'm glad that I went to that meeting. I'm glad that I started thinking about this a little bit more seriously. And but I do think it's going to require for me some outside help because there's a lot involved there that goes way back,
Oh, way
way
back.
back.
Way
You
back.
know,
Yes, way back. That's a lot to unpack, and I think a
it
therapist
is.
would be great if you can find one that you really like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I've been under psychological care for this is a long time anyway. I'll just ask my shrink. Do you know a good therapist? Because I think I need to talk to
Yeah,
someone.
and then just see what happens and get somebody who specializes in family of origin kinda stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
what's
great
Bree
to
say
just
here?
start.
Bree says one of the things I think we fail to mention in AA is how difficult the third, seventh, and 12th year. I don't know if it's a cultural or psychological thing, but I am not the only one who has noticed this. The third, seventh, and 12th year. Well, I don't know. For me, the second year was hard. The 10th year, I guess, for me. So I kind of, yeah, there are times periods that you go through, I guess, in the recovery process where I think what it is, you're going through different phases of development. And it's like there's a bumpy road as you traverse one phase to another. It's a little bit of a bump along the way because it's like, okay, this phase of my life is now done. I'm now here. You know, I've dealt with all this stuff over there, and I've improved my life, you know, somewhat. I've moved on, and now I'm in this new place, and there's still shit to deal with. Uh,
Yeah, but the good news is that you're not drunk so you can notice it.
yeah,
You know, it's like you had an aha moment where you went, "Wow, I've got this thorn in my side. What is this? Let me
yeah,
see it." And then
yeah.
take baby steps to do something. I feel
John
like my
said,
chosen family are I mean, I feel like
y-
my friends are my family. And then
yeah,
I
I
mean
know,
I mean, I have both. I have birth family and I have friend family.
right? I
Mhm.
do too. And you know, I think that AA for a long time gave me that sense of family connection too. You know, my home group that I was part of for
Mm.
25 years, they got to know me really well.
Yes.
The people here, you get that you get that in AA. That's one of the biggest strengths of AA. Now, I have not yet experienced Life Ring. It's still on my things
To-do
to do
list.
list,
Mhm.
but um, if and I hate to compare, but you know, AA does a really good job with the community aspect, with the connection and well, fellowship. I mean, it's not just a program; it's a fellowship. You know,
Mhm.
it's people bonding with one another, and AA is so good at that. There's
Yes.
a lot of strengths to it. I mean, I just and if the best thing about it though is that every group can do its own thing. So if you do go to AA, if you're new, if you go to one wacko meeting, don't assume that they're all wacko meetings. That
No,
just happens to
true.
be the one
Yeah.
like that.
There's always a meeting that you can find that you will like. You
Yeah.
just have to keep searching.
Alice says your family of origin is sometimes the system that got you sick in. It's hard to accept they may not change even if you do. Boy, damn, that's right.
That's very true.
That's some tough stuff, isn't it?
Mhm.
TWyla, there's a lot of comments coming over here. I feel like this is my therapy. You guys are okay. TWyla says, I'd rather talk to friends than with family. I can choose my friends. Yep, you can. You can't choose your family though,
No, you
can you?
can't. Yep.
And then Jay Monty says, I heard the concept behind amends is like quantum leap to fix what once went wrong. Yes. Wow, so much good stuff. Barb says in her 12th year, it's been far easier than other years. Yeah. Oh man, Panamuse, I just hit a year in NA. Congratulations. And adjunct therapy with a psychologist has been indispensable for me in coming to terms with my version of step 3. Congratulations, Panamuse. That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Gosh, I'm going to go through a few more here. Jay Monty, justice for other people instead of the self-absorbed drunk. The process of doing amends will fix us mostly vicariously by being open to the process. Oh boy, and Bobbert, this so many comments coming in. All right, I thank you for these. And by the way, let me put up the phone line because you can actually call in too. Let me do that real quick here. Put in banners. There it is. 844-899-8278. Please do give us a call. So anyway, Edwin, I hope that, when you saw the topic, that what we're talking about is kind of falling in line with what you might have hoped for. Um, so you expected your family to fall in line, to do their part, to understand. That was my first mistake. Inevitably, fell into rather a new family. Wire's family gave me support I never received. Also realized how sick my family was and to make tough decisions. I regret none of the decisions, some to cut ties, finally doing, yeah, there's a lot of tough decisions that do need to be made with that, isn't there? So in AA, we're trying to improve ourselves and get better. Most members of my family have no interest in getting better. And Dale says, I must be weird. I come from a very large family, and there's only one nephew that I can get along with.
Yeah,
Well, that's
you're
my
weird.
experience, Dale, but I don't even have the one. Oh, oh Lord. But my family is small. It used to be big. Used to be, but we get old and die.
But, I think a lot of the family issues, like, I am very different from my family, birth family members, and I think that I've learned to just see them because I love them, and I try not to go there with who they are as humans in society and what they believe in and how they think, and the more I get comfortable with myself, like, I went to a wedding earlier this summer with a huge part of my family that I don't see very often, and it was after million years of recovery, it was one of the first times I remember being 100% comfortable with my birth family in
Hmm.
every way, and it just takes what it takes.
Yeah.
And, I think that someone told me when I was beginning in AA to put myself on that top of the amends list, to do my own personal amends to myself before I went to other people.
I think it's wise. I do.
Self-forgiveness is really hard because we're
It
hardest
is.
on ourselves.
It is. You know, when I was going through that process, you know, and in a way, it's really ingenious the way it's laid out. That you first take a look at yourself before you do any amends. And I know when I was doing that steps 4 and 5, that I did come to this conclusion that my parents weren't good or bad. They did their best. That they had their own baggage, that they came with. And so I even though they were a big part of the issues I had and everything, I still love them. They're fine. I mean, they did their best. And I could see myself in them. They got from their parents, they passed on to me. I didn't have any kids to pass it on to, so my dog suffers. But anyway, you know what I mean. So anyway, I just kind of realized that these people are just human. I'm
Yeah.
just, we all have
We're
our
all just
failings.
human. We're
We're
all
all just
just
human.
human.
Yeah, and these are just human things. So anyway, I had some sense of forgiveness, I guess, self forgiveness, and just realizing that I wasn't a bad person. I didn't do any bad things. The people that raised me weren't bad. These were just like these are experiences that I had, and I just need to learn how to, I guess, overcome or find better ways of dealing with it or whatever. And my amends, when I actually did make them, I was pretty confident that at that point, and I think I went about it the right way. I made some direct amends to an employer, because I needed to do that just to be able to see these people. Um, my father, I had to be very gentle with the amends because was not the type of person that wants to sit down and have a conversation, but I could be a really good son and do things for him and be with him. Um, so things like that. But by and large, I was but during my drinking years, I didn't really have very many relationships, honestly. There wasn't a lot going
Right.
I
It's
didn't
kinda
have a
hard to
lot of
keep up.
entanglements, really.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm really
So,
happy that you kind of came to that conclusion that it's something you wanna look at
yeah,
and see where it goes.
yeah, and I have to say it feels good sitting here talking about it too. So Barb has something to say. Barb says, "I have one brother. Oddly, my mother has separated us. No apparent reason. We even have separate holidays with her. If they visit her, we are not invited." Families could be so, aren't they something else? I swear.
Yes. Yes.
Jay Monty didn't meet my birth family till 25, so mine and their personalities were fairly well established. It has been interesting integrating and getting along. Are you an adoptee, Jay? Because that's a whole other set of issues that come with being adopted. And I thought maybe Barb was, but I don't know for sure. I can't remember for sure. I've talked to so many people. But with adoption, there comes, so many people that, like Jay met his birth family when he's 25. I'm assuming maybe he was adopted, but there's a lot of people now that are finding their,
Mhm.
birth mother or father. Now it's a lot easier to do than used to be. Take care, Bree. Good to see you. But anyway, that's a whole other set of issues there. Um, so anyone out there want to talk about anything that do you have any thoughts about, things you don't want to talk about? Is it healthy that maybe you're just setting proper boundaries, that these aren't things to discuss in an AA meeting, that maybe, or even with a close friend, that these are just things that you're saving for more professional help, or you're just taking your time with it, or maybe just shelving it for a while or whatever, like I did. I don't know, but get share your thoughts. Give us a call, 899-844-899-8278.
It's
So
also
yeah,
about being honest and transparent and vulnerable,
it
because
is.
it's hard to s not say, "I'm fine." If you have a lot of investment in looking good and having a certain level of "I'm fineness," it's hard to say, "I'm not really fine. This happened, and I need to talk about it."
That's true. That's very true. Especially if you've been sober for a long time,
Mhm.
and you go to meetings, and there might be a lot of people that are fairly new. OJ says sex is never talked about. It sure isn't. We'll have to do an episode all about it sometime. But anyway, so yeah, what was I saying? Anyway, I can't remember what I was just thinking about there. But
So the
anyway,
vulnerability and talking to another human being, which I think is what works in recovery meetings, is that you can call a person and talk to them individually and just say, "Can I talk to you about this?" And someone
yeah,
else will be there to witness your venting or to help you kind of sort it out or to
yeah,
ask the right questions. We're all there for each other because we're not all on 24/7, 168 hours a week. As a human, I need to be able to know the people I can call and just say, "This happened." And even if it's embarrassing that it's triggering me, I need to talk it out.
hmm it's always good to have at least one friend that you can talk to, about
Yeah, no
things.
matter what.
Yep,
Yeah, that
yep,
that it can be something silly that triggered you, but you just talk about it to someone.
yep.
Yeah,
And
and
then
even
and that's another possible strength of AA. I'm sometimes critical of the sponsorship things, because sponsorship could go really, really, really bad. It
yes,
could be awful, horrible, terrible, controlling sponsors, and I've seen a lot of that. And there seems to be a whole culture and meeting set up around that
agreed, agreed.
that is awful. But that could also be a good thing if you have someone who is really a friend
Mhm,
first,
mhm,
because my idea of sponsorship has always been that it's a relationship of equals, really.
mhm.
Maybe one person's been around a little bit longer. And the best thing that a sponsor can do is listen and share experience, I think. A sponsor shouldn't be telling you what to do, or
No,
telling you that you're stupid, or you can't, or put the plug in the ears, or whatever that they say,
yeah.
whatever they say. Anyway, but
They say put the plug in the jug is what they
put the
say, John,
plug in the but it
not the
isn't.
ears.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they say put cotton in your mouth or
That's the
what
one
are
I'm
they?
thinking
Yeah,
about. That's what I'm thinking about. Put cotton in your mouth.
ears and shut your mouth
Yeah,
or
shut your
no,
mouth and
that
just
that
listen,
doesn't
something like
make
that.
sense. Somebody tell us what they say.
Oh, Twyla has a big comment. Let's read this one. See what she has to say. So, Twyla's celebrating 1 year free of alcohol and drugs on August 24th. Congratulations. That's really, really nice to hear. I found my community in Life Ring. Oh, Twyla, I should have you on as a guest sometime. If you would like to come on the podcast, please let me know. I'd love to have you as a guest. Do whatever works for you to stay sober in a secular forum. I've made important connections there that have helped me a lot. I was sober 20 plus years ago for 4 years, and attended AA regularly during that period. I still have my 1 year coin given to me by my good friend in my home group. She passed away years ago, so I treasure that coin. Very grateful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Twyla. I would love to have you as a guest. I haven't done a lot on Life Ring or experienced Life Ring myself. I got really interested in smart recovery, as you know, Mary. I did a lot of episodes on that, went to some meetings, took the training and all that. Was really interested in it. I do like the tools and stuff, and I use those, and I see I'm able to. It helps. It's helpful for me, and I think it's a good thing. But I never really tried Life Ring, and I would like to do that. I've had a couple of episodes that dealt with Life Ring, but not very many. So I'd love to have a talk with you sometime, Twyla, about that. if you are able. And I know not everybody is, happy to come on a podcast and talk about themselves.
Yes, exactly, for the whole world to see and be recorded forever and ever.
Yes,
It does
yes,
take a
yes.
little bit of courage, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah,
It
it
does.
does. Just
Yeah.
like talking in a meeting about something that's bugging you, and I
Mhm.
do agree that there's topics to talk about in the larger group, and then there are topics to talk about with a singular person, not in the larger group. I think there is a distinction, at least for me personally.
That maybe you would just pull someone aside and say, "Hey, can we go have coffee or something?"
I would
Rather
if
than
it was something real personal, I would, yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Plus, there's a dynamic too in meetings where things could go really, really wrong. If you bring up a specific issue and problem as in a way that it looks like you're asking for
Help.
feedback in a way, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You're
then
gonna get
all
it.
then yes, and that's awful because then you go around the room and every person is going to address you with their opinion of what you should or should not do or whatever. And I hate that. That's no good. That
Mhm.
it's better, I think. Again, and this is another strength of AA is that people will listen to you. You just talk. They aren't gonna talk back
Right.
to you. They're gonna listen to you.
Right. Just about your own personal experience, and then
Yeah.
everyone talks about their own personal experience. Yep.
Yes. Jay has been to some Life Ring meetings too. Life Ring meetings on the Zoom meeting list. I'm gonna check some out. Like I say, it's been on my thing to do, my list to do the things, whatever, for a long time. I don't
Yeah,
know
me
why.
too,
I,
actually.
you
So,
know,
if you find one, let me know.
okay. Well,
I've
and
never
I
been
will.
to one.
I will. And I've got the book too. I've read the book. And so yeah, it's a good alternative. It's a secular alternative,
Yes.
and we're lucky to have it.
Yes.
Them, Women for Sobriety is another great one, and, of course, Smart Recovery, and they're all different,
They're all
they're
different.
they're all different, they all have their own things. Also, you could include in there Dharma Recovery. I know some in the secular crowd say that's not secular, but, the people who go there think it's secular, to
Agreed.
them.
Yeah, we have one now in person here in Savannah.
Uh-huh.
Yep, we do.
Dharma?
So, I will check that out, yes. Mhm. And it's considered a meditation meeting so that,
Yeah.
there's a 15-minute silent meditation, not really silent, but it's a good alternative for people to a regular traditional AA meeting or even a secular meeting.
Mhm.
AA meeting. It has a little bit different focus. I would like to know if anybody out there has ever been to an Artists in Recovery meeting.
Oh, I have
I
not,
would
but
like okay, if anybody has, can you just tell me what it's like or where they are?
I first heard about Artisan Recovery, several years ago, early when we started this podcast. And I did not know it was like a national thing or anything, but there was a group in, Arkansas,
Mhm.
that they wanted to be a secular AA meeting, but they were given a hard time. Imagine that in Arkansas. So,
Imagine.
so anyways, they given a hard time. So they started the Artisan Recovery group. And for a while I was corresponding with them. I never had them on the podcast. I don't know why. But I would that's another group I'd like to reach out to learn more about. But they had this thing, Artisan Recovery, and I thought it was just an Arkansas thing.
No, I
But
know they have meetings in Manhattan. I have reached out to them online and no one's ever responded. So I
oh,
don't know what the current state of affairs is for it, but if anybody knows anything about that, I would love to know.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out,
Mhm.
as well. There's that's the thing about this podcast that I have always, that I like the most is because 'cause I'm always learning. There's
Mhm.
so much out there to learn about and to
Yes.
explore.
Yes.
It's never ending, even in the secular, even when you break it down to secular, recovery, it's a huge world. It
A
really
huge
is.
world. Yes.
Much bigger than I ever knew. And
Yes.
it's not even just, groups that are like official groups that were set up or anything, that just sometimes informal groups on social media and stuff like
Mhm.
that, or
Mhm.
people who get together for a book club or whatever. There's just a lot of connection going on with people supporting each other in their recovery without having to bring a lot of dogma into it.
Agreed.
A lot of that
100%.
is
Yeah.
happening now. A lot of it's happening right now.
Yes. Much needed.
Yeah. So anyway, enough of that. So what else? Where are we going to go with this now, Mary?
I don't know. Let's see. So self-forgiveness.
Self forgiveness.
I mean,
Let's
why is it harder for us to forgive ourselves? And what are the benefits of self-forgiveness? Like, I feel if I have ever done it thoroughly, that it really changes the way I feel on the inside.
Uh-huh.
It really opens up space for me to have more love and joy in my life, and it lessens the sound of the inner critic. If I can just forgive myself, because if I am expected to forgive other people, which I kind of feel like I am in my life, the way I've set up what my goals are for my life, is to not dwell on things and hold grudges and resentments, because that just usually, if I hold a judgment or resentment, then that makes me want to avoid that person. So if I can actually forgive and move on, then it opens up a bigger world for me rather than avoiding people that I have a resentment toward. So I think, you know, for me, being in recovery is not just not drinking, it's about having a freer life and being more comfortable with being uncomfortable and learning
Mm.
how to see what triggers me. Because the other day I had, I was talking to someone and I got triggered and I got mad, and I usually never get mad much unless I'm yelling at politics on TV, but I never express anger. I just don't really feel it that much, maybe if I'm driving, but it came up from inside me and I verbalized it before I could even stop myself. And I had to think about that later, like, why did you do that and why couldn't you pause? And then I heard in a meeting this morning someone was talking about that, and she used the acronym WAIT, which is, why am I talking? Like,
Oh, I
just
like
wait.
that.
And I had never heard that before. So I'm going to try that if I say something, if something just comes out that's uncontrollable, because I usually, after that, I feel ashamed. I wish I hadn't done it. It just creates more anger. It doesn't alleviate anger. It just kind of sparks it even further. And so I have to forgive myself for that. And, you know, forgive other people. Like I've been forgiven, from, and it's not like in terms of a religious, oh, he forgave, so you can forgive, in the myth of the Christian faith that some people adhere to. It's more like I just want more space of comfort and um, feeling comfortable in my own skin. And if I hold all this stuff in my head and in my heart, then I just create armor and I create walls, and then I can't be in the moment because I'm trying to uphold the walls in the armor. And then sometimes I just still create the resentment and let it keep going. So I either create it, promote it, or allow it in my life. And so I got to figure out what's my part in it. And why am I still doing that based on something that happened yesterday?
And that's
Is
what helps
today,
you with the forgiveness, isn't it?
yeah,
Self-forgiveness is understanding that. You're the understanding.
the understanding of it. And then also just saying sometimes you just have to let it all, you know, be in a million pieces and just move on. You can't figure it out. It's just the puzzle got screwed up and you're just going to walk on. And you're going to be in the moment because there's so many present moments that I'm missing by having a construct about that person or that incident. I just want to be in the moment because every day is fresh and new. And I don't want to carry all yesterday's and 30 years ago's bullshit into today. That's kind of my goal.
I think too that I think another thing that's important about self-forgiveness is that it you're not gonna grow unless you do that first because, we go through rocky seas sometimes,
Yes.
and sometimes we don't handle it too well. I don't anyway.
Right.
And if I go through a rough spot in life and I don't like what saw in myself, I didn't handle it really well, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
whether it be how I was relating to another person, how I reacted to another person, whatever. I'm just not proud of how I did. If I'm just gonna sit there and be be totally critical about myself and feel bad about that, I'm not gonna move on. And so at a certain point, like you said, what I will do, and it's a process for me, and sometimes it's a painful process. I mean, it could take weeks sometimes,
Yeah.
but you just kind of go through this phase of, like you just said, you learn. You kind of do a self-examination and you learn about why you reacted the way you did. You come to some sort, at least I do. I come to some sort of, I don't know, balance with understanding that, okay, I didn't like the way I behaved. I was that's not the best me,
Yeah.
but that's just the way I handled the
Right.
situation, and I understand why I handled it that way. And now I need to deal with it. And now I need to learn from that and deal with it better and figure out, if there was anyone else involved with my insanity that I that I hurt or impact in any way, is it going to cause even more problems to talk to them, or do I just kind of move on and
Just
fix
move on and
myself?
try not to do it again.
And
Yeah.
most of the time, I find, Mary, when we're talking about amends in a way, most of the time I find a lot of times it depends on how you hurt the person or how the person is feeling, but sometimes it's best just to just to take care of yourself. And if you're still gonna have a relationship with the person, I guess you do need to address it. But if you're not, that okay. Now I'm thinking in terms of like maybe a romantic relationship that breaks or
Oh,
something.
right,
I'm talking
right.
about a broken relationship. I think that in those cases, it's probably better to move on and let that other person heal. And I can tell you this from experiences I've had with a couple experiences I've had, not a lot of them. And it came from people that were contacted by an ex who was in AA, who
Oh,
was
for
wanting
an
to make
amends. Right,
amends, and they were traumatized because they didn't want to hear from this person.
right.
And
Gotcha.
it's like, maybe the person who was trying to make those amends didn't fully understand the impact of what they were doing to the other person. Maybe they thought it over and they thought, well, this isn't going to harm the other person. And maybe after they realized it was harming them, they stopped. I don't know. But I can tell you from what I was hearing in these two instances I'm thinking about, the person who was approached with these amends, it was a really traumatic thing. One person had a restraining order against the guy, and and I remember the one I'm thinking about, I was actually answering the phones for our central office,
Mhm.
and she was just really distraught. And she told me all about her ex who called to make amends. And she said, "Do you tell people to do that? Do you tell
Oh,
people to?"
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh no." In fact, we say if it's going to hurt someone, you don't do that. And
Mhm.
I just told her, "I'm so 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 sorry." So anyway, I've kind of come to the conclusion that sometimes leaving someone alone is the best
Yeah,
thing to
just
do.
wipe the slate clean and move on, and
Yeah,
also not ask for validation in a, "Yes, I forgive you," from the other person. I mean,
yeah,
that's just very egotistical if you do.
it is.
Yeah,
Just heal yourself and
yeah,
then move on to the next relationship and hopefully not make the
right.
same kind of mistakes. Oh boy, more comments here. So, Jay Monty, I have never been able to forgive self, but I'm often angry. I do suspect there's a connection. Never been able to find a shrink to help me. And Dale says that he knows of a shrink. I have a wonderful therapist. She is the one I'll say things to that I'll never say in a meeting. That's good, Dale. And Dale's talked about that before. He's had a long time relationship with his therapist. Been going seeing her for a long time, if I remember right. And it's been very, very helpful to him.
And you're very lucky, Dale, to find someone that you
You
like,
are.
and trust, and have been with a long time. Yep.
And I bet you too. I bet you that it takes some time. I know I've been in therapy quite a few times over the years, and some therapists I've been with for a shorter period of time, and some for a longer period of time. The one that I was with for the longer period of time, the my trust and openness grew over time. So the one that I went to for a short period of time, there was still part of me that held back,
Mhm.
and I didn't go to see her enough to be opened up, I guess.
Yes.
I had a bit of a but the one that I went to for a long, long time, he was super helpful, made a big impact in my life to this day. And, I've been seeing him for a couple of years, I guess, on a regular basis. And um, I credit him with a lot of my growth. And yeah, it was very, 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 very helpful. In fact, this meeting I went to, this
Mhm.
traditional meeting, someone said, I wish they would put in the steps a suggestion to go to therapy. And they kind of do. I mean somewhere in the readings in the big book, it does it, not in the steps themselves, but it does say that, hey, we encourage outside help. Doctors, and
Yes.
they can help us if we allow them to.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been to therapists for over my life. Whenever I come to a standstill or a bump in the road, something, I will find a therapist. I had a good therapist. She moved away, so I haven't found anyone to replace her yet that I really bonded with.
Hmm.
And for now, I'm good. But I highly recommend anyone, if they can, to do that,
Yeah, yeah,
because sometimes you just need that professional sort of outlook to kind of help
you
sort it
do.
out.
You
Mhm.
do. It helps in that way, and it gives you some encouragement, to heal, get better, to understand things.
And also to be validated for what we are
Yeah,
feeling and thinking. But and then
yeah,
also you can do that at an AA meeting because sometimes just saying it and letting it hit the air alleviates it and also gives you clarity. Sometimes just saying it to a group of human beings or to
yeah,
another human being,
yeah.
does the same thing therapy does if you can't do therapy.
Mhm. Barb says there's a meeting posted in AA Beyond Belief where they use music, etc., as inspiration for topics. That'd be interesting. I like that kind of an idea for a meeting.
I do too.
There was a there's a guy. Dang, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Matt, who started a meeting that was based on podcast episodes and books and things like that. And the meeting started oddly enough when he and his friend would watch the TV series Mom
Oh, yeah.
together,
Mhm.
which is all about AA, right?
Yep.
And I love that. I love that show too. But he
Mhm.
and his friend would watch that show together, and Matt had a really, really good sponsor, and his sponsors, and he asked his sponsor one day, "Is this a meeting? Sitting here watching this TV show with my friend?" And the sponsor says, "Hell yeah, it is. If you two are getting together and get some help from it." So from that, he got this idea to have these meetings that are based on podcast episodes and things like that. I think that's really cool. That they do that. And I went to one of his meetings, and actually they listened to one of my episodes at one of his meetings.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun to sit there with people. It was the first experience I had of being with people who listened to the podcast with me, I guess, and then talked about it. And not all of them loved it, which was fine. Not all of them got what I was saying, I guess, and which is cool. But it was a really nice experience to do that. And then I've been to I know I went to another one where we just listened to an episode of another podcast and went around the room or whatever. It's a good meeting. I like that kind of that's good. So a meeting based upon music, that sounds really
Yeah,
interesting.
Barb, tell us where if you get any info about that meeting, let us know. I'd
Yep.
love to go to that.
Anonymous, did you go anonymous, John? Who, me? Me anonymous? I'm not anonymous.
No, to the meeting,
Did I
to
go to the meeting
the
anonymous?
meeting that you went to the other day,
Oh, yes, I did. I did. I was anonymous. I was. It was an online meeting. I was anonymous.
which is awesome for you because you're so not
Oh,
anonymous.
that's another thing interesting too
Yes.
about anonymity. I'm glad you brought that up, Jay. So here's the thing about anonymity. I okay, first of all, I just said, okay, I saw anonymity as okay, this is all about public relations. I'm not here to do PR for AA. I'm gonna talk about AA all I want to. I'll be open about it. I'll put myself on camera, blah, blah, blah. I'm totally fine with that. I believe me, I am. I don't have to follow that rule that the public relations policy. I don't That's their policy, it's not mine. And it's a bad way to do a podcast anyway. But in that meeting, I was completely anonymous. And there is a value to that because you do feel safer, I think, in that environment where you have that complete privacy. I think sometimes in terms of confidentiality, it's important to know that what you're going to say is going to be held in confidence, and that's super
Yes.
important.
Right?
But when you're with I was with a group of people who don't know me. They do not know me. They don't know who I am. And I think that was the real strength I got from that particular meeting, Mary. They weren't people that were in secular AA. None of them listened to the podcast. No one knew I even had a podcast. No one knew anything about me. So there was that total anonymity, and it was very, very helpful. It gave me a place to where I felt like I could be
Just be
more
you.
open. So
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, Jay. So there's a benefit to anonymity in that respect, um, of being anonymous in terms of like taking your personality and who you are out of it. I guess you know is valuable. So there is some value in that, and it's more than just having some sense of confidentiality. It's a matter of getting your ego out of it, I guess,
Yes.
of
Mhm.
the meeting.
Mhm.
and there's some real value in that. And it's hard to do. I mean, if you go to your home group all the time and you get to know people, you're not anonymous to them, right?
Right.
And so maybe there's some things that you might not wanna you're not really comfortable talking about there.
Right.
But you go to some other place with a bunch of people who don't know who know you,
Exactly.
you're much more anonymous, you're much there's no ego involved. There's no pride or anything like that. It's a lot you're more in a more safe environment. Very interesting that you brought that up. Gosh, so many great comments here. This has been a good episode. Apologies originally came because I have just pulled things out of my head this week I've needed to talk about for months. Just didn't for some reason. My family post was at the moment tangent. Boy, I thank you. Thank you, Edwin. Yeah, and no reason to apologize. No reason to apologize. Look at me sitting here blabbing like this.
No, I like
Um,
what you said about not dwelling. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Who? Edwin?
Oh, yeah, Edwin said uh, real
Okay.
emotionally charged thoughts and not letting them out. This allows me to dwell, then issues can change and revise themselves. So much so it's too far away from the real why. That resentment that crops up for me anyway is so much more.
There must be a limit to the amount of text you
Yeah, I
can
think he
write.
just reached his character limit. Yeah.
Funny, funny. Barb says, I'm so very lucky with my children. We have talked about everything. They have forgiven me, but still bring up past hurts. When I'm in a good space, I can be supportive of them and get up and not get upset. Yes.
And I feel like family of origin sort of in my family makes an opinion about who I am based on who I was in high school. And it's kinda like, even though I'm way older than that now, they still see me as that person, and they
Mm,
don't evolve the way I've evolved, especially since I don't see them that often. They just
mhm.
have sort of one opinion of who I am, and that kinda stuck. That character or that mask or that role I played stuck forever, and it's
Yeah.
kinda hard to get out of that role.
Yes. Okay. Here's a question that comes from, I don't know how to answer, from Sunyata. What is beyond awareness? I don't know. Can you answer that question for me? Because I don't know. Edwin says, COVID, then Zoom plus anonymous equals less ego. Zoom really helped me. That, you know what, man, there is something to that.
Yes.
This was an online meeting with a bunch of people who didn't know me, yet they didn't know me. Yet we still had a really deep connection through our shared experiences. You know,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
it's kind of nice to have this ability where you can just go to any meeting you want anywhere in the world. You
We're
know.
so lucky. We are so lucky in this year that we can do that. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
And there's no excuse not to go to a meeting anymore because we
No.
can go anywhere we want.
Anywhere, anytime, anyhow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would love for people to just shout out to what their favorite meeting is online. I'm looking for some new meetings. And yeah, if you have a favorite meeting online, let me know.
Yeah.
And also, we're planning the International Secular
Oh yeah.
Conference of AA, which will be in 6 weeks.
So
The
how's
weekend.
that shaping up?
Well, we had our first meeting last Sunday. We'll have our second one this Sunday. And we are right now brainstorming topics and panels and speakers. And it will be a virtual conference on October 29th and 30th. I think it's going to be 2 days so that it'll be a Saturday and a Sunday of probably 6 hours each so that everyone in every time zone can attend at some point. And so we're just looking right now for topics for panels and also for speakers. So if you
Okay.
have any ideas on something you would like to see in an international secular AA conference, feel free to put it in the chat or
Hmm.
call it in.
Neil says that any of the meetings in Toronto or Ireland, he likes those. That
I
those are
agree.
really
I
good.
love those too. I agree 100%.
Jay Monty says Broader Path Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Odessa,
Okay.
Ontario, and lots of free thinkers groups in the U.S. haven't been to a bad one. That's nice to hear, Edwin. And did I already read this one? Oh yeah, niche Rockland Free Thinkers Sunday. Rockland Free Thinkers. Where's
Sundays at 4.
Where's Rockland? I think I'm familiar with this group. I don't know. I think I'm familiar with this group. I don't know why. But anyway, it's probably just because I've seen a lot of meetings or something, but or I've done a podcast with them. I don't know. Anyway, I like the Rockland Free Thinkers. That's a oh, it's in New York. Yeah, of course. I thought so. I thought so. Upstate New York, outside New York City. Yeah, I do know this group. I believe. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's been like a long time. I've done this podcast since September of 2015. So
Wow.
next month is going to be, yeah, next month's going to be 7 years of doing this.
Yep.
That's a lot, and I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of groups over the years, and it's just been an amazing experience. Yeah, Long Island, somewhere around there. Okay, I know where they are. I mean, I just kind of forgot, but there's another group in New York too, upstate New York that I was familiar with, and I was kind of confusing her with them. I them niche with them anyway. Anyway, whatever. Sorry, I'm getting to the point where everything is kind of blending together for me in my brain as I think back in the last 7 years of doing this podcast. But what an experience it's been, and
And
all the change that we've seen in the
yes.
secular recovery community, specifically in secular AA, and all the change that I've experienced personally, and all that I've learned over the years, just been incredible. So
And what a gift that you started this podcast, that you just did it. And every person, it's wonderful to see how one person can help so many other people. So it's great that we're all
Roger
sober.
Roger C.
Yeah, Roger C.
So that guy, he'd only been sober, I don't know, maybe a year when he
Yep.
started AA
True.
Agnostica,
Yep.
and he started it. He was all he was upset about the Toronto intergroup
Right.
throwing his group
Fiasco. Yes.
off the meeting list. He didn't like that, so they started a website just specifically so that they could list their meetings, and it was called AA Toronto Agnostics. And then they started posting like little blogs and stuff on there. And then Roger creates a new website, A Agnostica. And this gets some traction.
Hmm.
I start reading it. I actually signed up on his website. He had a little matchmaking thing where if you want to start a meeting in your city, you put your name in there, they match you up with some people. I did that. He matched me up with some people, and they never did get a hold of me anything. But anyway, played a big role. Anyway, so he's the reason I'm doing this podcast. He wanted me to do AA Beyond Belief. I was on a podcast. I said, okay, I'm going to mix a podcast in with this website. Next thing, bam, there it is. So it's interesting how what we do for whatever motivates us to do it, how that impacts other people down the line.
Yes, exactly.
Well, even that Toronto intergroup, throwing them out.
Yes.
If they didn't do that, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast because
And I
Roger
wouldn't
wouldn't have
be
started
here.
his
Right.
website.
And I wouldn't be here. Yeah. If it hadn't been for Larry Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also.
So think
Agreed.
about everything that came out of that Toronto debacle.
Yes. And how wonderful that was.
I still wish they'd make a movie about that. I see it as kind of like a Fargo movie. Because it is kind of funny, those Canadian accents, and they can talk about, ooh, I don't like it when they don't talk about God.
Or you're not a real meeting. And, I don't know what a tribunal council is or whatever that was called, what they called the Human Rights
Oh, the Human Rights Tribunal.
Tribunal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is nice to have because, in the United States, if you want to protect your rights, you got to go hire a lawyer.
Yes.
It costs you money.
Right.
There, you just go to this tribunal and they take care of everything. So very nice.
And also, someone is talking about secular serenity on Thursdays at
Oh, here it is.
At 5 o'clock.
1700 GMT, Cape Town, South Africa.
Gotcha.
Secular Serenity.
Gotcha.
ACLU, Jay Monty says. Oh, Jay is at a Tim Horton. I got to experience Tim Hortons when I went up to the international conference in 2000. Was it 2014? I can't remember now. Even when was that? 2018, right?
Yeah, the one in Toronto.
Went up in Toronto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have really nice truck stops up there too, with comfortable seating. Not like they have in the United States, at least not around here. Okay, the tribunal is only for the province of
Right.
Ontario.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. We've gone an hour. Thank you, everybody, for participating, for being here. This was helpful for me. Thank you, Mary. It was so good to see you again.
Good to be back.
We will have to come up with a topic for next week. I don't know what it will be, but we'll find it something to talk about. So, y'all, take care. I'm going to go ahead and play our disco music. I lived through the 1970s.
But that sounds like it.
And if I could ever go back to any period of time, 1970s, I'd like to have been a little bit older, though, so I could have enjoyed it more. Okay, y'all, take
Agreed.
care. Be well. We'll be talking to you again next week. Bye-bye.